My wife of 10 years left me to die on a desolate farm. My wife and I had been together for 10 years, married for 5 of those. Everything was fine though, until she bought a horse, a charcoal gray filly we'll call Sasha. We weren't rich by any means, and really we were barely making it day by day as it was. I wasn't aware she'd bought Sasha until after the deal had been done and the man had gone back where he came from, halfway across the country. "What are you thinking?" I asked her. Yeah, I was pissed. I didn't know how she expected to take care of a horse with the little money we did have. She smiled, holding out an ad for a farm. 9 acres and a big 1800s Victorian home for $500 a month rent. I asked her how she figured that this wasn't some scam, a big house and so much land for that cheap. We decided to visit it anyway. The landlady was nice, as she had lived in the house since she was small. As my wife and I looked around, I noticed that the foyer was completely bare bones, no drywall or anything that would make it look like a room. One of the bedrooms upstairs had a giant hole in the floor that one could fall through, and it smelled funny. I couldn't place the smell, but it was stale and made my nose itch. "You're kidding me?" I asked her. She took me aside. "Look, it's cheap and Sasha needs a place to go. We can't afford to put her in a private stable." I reminded her that she should have thought about that before she made such a rash purchase, but in the end it was no use arguing because weeks later we were moving in. I guess a part of me was looking forward to it. I loved animals in general, but I really liked to garden. 2 months into our stay on the farm and we had the 2 dogs we moved in with, the horse, and now 4 turkeys and 100 chickens. Winter was fast approaching, and that night there was a freeze, 16 degrees below zero. The next morning, 3 of our turkeys and all of our chickens had perished. We didn't understand it because they had warmth, they were in shelter. That shouldn't have happened. Over the next month, a bit of a rift began to form between my wife and I. We didn't seem to be as close as we were. Eventually, she stopped sleeping in the bedroom at night, stopped sleeping with me in general. When January came, her dog that she'd had for 15 years passed away. We had her cremated, but she mourned so heavily, and I stayed close by her side when she wanted me there. February brought on the death of my dog, which I had for 8 years. I had adopted him when he was 4. I tucked my mourning away for the time and continued to help my wife cope with hers. Someone had to be strong for her, and it had to be me. Over the next months, the rift grew until it was almost irreparable. I began talking to her about counseling for us, that I wanted to do whatever we could to make things better again, both for her and us. She would always refuse, saying things would improve in their own time. I knew that wasn't the case. It never was. Meanwhile, animals on the property continued to die off, no matter how well we were taking care of them. Even when the vet said they were all in perfect health and weight. Other little things would happen. Our water purification system broke, making the water smell like it came from the sewer. The landlady refused to fix that even though it was on her. Mice got into the house and infested it, as did the ants. What the hell was going on? The house was clean. Then my hot pepper plants, which I had been growing for over 5 years, all died. That's when I noticed that I was having respiratory issues. I went to the doctor and he put me on the proper medications, treating me for bronchitis. This was something I had had many times in my life, so it was nothing new. But I kept getting sick, and each time was worse than the previous. My wife noticed this and we both agreed to get the hell out of that cursed farm. The day after I recovered from my 3rd illness, it was beautiful out. It was the middle of summer 2019. My wife was happier than I had ever seen her, and we had a marvelous day. When we got home that night, I had gotten a call from my doctor, but as it was too late to call him, it would have to wait until tomorrow. I decided to go to sleep, even though I wasn't sick anymore. The toll it took on my body was still exhausting. I woke up sometime during the night around 3 in the morning. I walked out from the bedroom to find my wife, was not on the couch. I looked in all the rooms of the house to no avail. Then I got worried. I'd fallen asleep relatively early, so what if she had gone out to do work in the pasture and something had happened? As much as I was afraid of the animals that lurked out on the dark pasture each night, some of which were a threat to humans as well, I went out with a flashlight and began to look. I searched every inch of that land and again turned up nothing. When I went back inside, I noticed other things too. Her dog's urn, picture, her laptop, and clothes were also gone. That's when it hit me like a one-ton punch. She left me. I called her immediately, and only after the 20th call did she answer. "Where are you?" I asked out. "You coming back?" "I'm getting out of here before I die like you're going to. I'll be back Wednesday for anything else I left." She then hung up the phone. What did she mean? Was I going to die? I sat up on my bed all night and cried, for I was still in love with her, and we had the best day in a long time only hours ago. I found out that she had blocked my phone number as well as blocking me on all of my social media. I had to come to terms with the fact that our decade-long relationship was over. I called my doctor and the nurse asked me why my wife hadn't given me the message. "Message?" I asked. I scheduled a doctor's appointment for 2 weeks later, as soon as he could see me. Yes, he really is that busy. In that time, I got sick again. It was the worst one yet. I was hospitalized immediately. In the end, it turned out that between the uncontrollable mouse infestation and that the musty smell I had been inhaling since day one turned out to be a little black mold that had grown into catastrophic amount, my immune system from getting sick so much, for some reason, was getting weaker. By this time, if I were to get sick again, I wouldn't survive it. I had been inhaling mold spores and mouse crab dust, and for some reason it hadn't affected her. I found out that the doctor had given her the message the day before she left. Not the cause, but that I would probably die if we didn't get out of that house, that my immune system was weak. I talked to my ex-wife a few months down the road after I'd recovered and got my own apartment in the city, mold and infestation free. I met a beautiful, kind woman, and we're getting on just fine. And according to my wife, she was working a traveling carnival and then got engaged to a pedophile. I chuckled to myself. As tragic as her ending was, maybe karma does exist. Either way, I know my life is going to go in a positive direction from here, and I'm not going to take any of it for granted.